Hello, good afternoon, and thank you so very much for attending our webinar today. This is really the first part of a six-part series, and at the end of this webinar, I'll go over what those 6 parts are so you can get them on your calendar. My name is Merrily Orsini, and I will be a presenter today along with Marissa Snook, who's our most program manager here at corecubed, and I'll go over our qualifications to actually be presenting this workshop in just a minute. But first, let me say that we do have all of our attendees on hold, and you are muted. And we are also recording this because we do post these webinars on our corecubed website so that you can, if you have to leave early or if you have someone in your staff that you would like to attend, then you can certainly just go to our website, corecubed.com, and you can go to the events section. It's under the About Us section, and you can find a lot of webinars that we've been doing for the past several years. There is an opportunity to ask questions in addition to when you registered. Some of you asked some very good questions, which we will get to, some of them. And if we have questions we don't get to, we'll try to answer those offline and separately if they were too much of a niche market question to deal with today. But you do have the opportunity to ask a question on the right-hand side of your screen. You can just type it in, and we will come back and have a question and answer session at the end of this webinar. Again, this is Merrily Orsini, and I have been in marketing, home care now, aging services actually, more broadly, for a long time. So starting in 1981 when I started my first business in Louisville, Kentucky, which was Elder Care Solutions. And in 1998, I started what is now corecubed, and Marissa Snook, who is my co-presenter today and also the administrator of our MOST program, which she will talk a little more about, has been with us for a long time. Marissa, how long have you been with corecubed? I should know that.
I have been here for almost 9 years now.
9 years. Goodness, time does fly when you're having fun. But
That's
she's
right.
been very focused in home care since 2005 and extremely focused in home care and aging services since 2007. So both of us come with lots of experience in terms of doing marketing for businesses that service and the elderly and that provide aging care. So hopefully you will learn something today, and we are excited to present to you. Our objectives for today's workshop are really to have you understand the changing demographics and how those relate to marketing. And then one of the primary marketing components is who do you target for services. Oftentimes we will see people targeting the wrong target and speaking to the wrong target, and so we felt it was helpful to give you some primers on that. And then looking at what are the best channels to use to reach the target you're trying to reach, because anyone who's in a business, works in a business, does anything to do with marketing knows that marketing in the last few years has just changed dramatically. And keeping up with those changes so that you can continue to grow your business is really crucial. I always like to start with basic marketing strategy because people get marketing and public relations and sales all confused. And marketing is really the basis of whatever you are taking out to the public. So any of your messages, any of your communication should be based on a strategic thought process. And at the very core and essence of that strategic thought process is knowing who your target is. Who is it that you are trying to reach? And by that I mean, who's the decision maker? So although if you're selling children's shoes, you might reach those children through interesting ads, the decision maker is going to be that parent who's going to spend the money. So knowing that target is really incredibly important. And then knowing the message, what you're looking for in a message is something that's going to resonate with that target. So this sounds easy. It's really not so easy because there's a lot of noise out there in the advertising and marketing world, and so getting that message correctly that's going to pique the interest of that target is crucial. And then the third part of that, and this is becoming so much more important with marketing today, is marrying that message with the visual, because that message and visual have to also speak to that target. So that's really the basic marketing strategy. And then in the channel component of it, how are you going to find a way, assuming you've got the right target, you've defined that, your message and your visual work great together, but then you have to find a way to make the decision makers who are actually going to be making the decision to purchase a product or service. So let's first look at really how big is the target, and these are pretty astonishing statistics. So if you really look at what's happening with this boomer population, and that's those born between 1946 and 1964, they are turning 65 at a rate, and there's an estimate of this, between 8,000 and 10,000 people a day. I've seen even some estimates as high as 12,000 a day. So it's a huge number of people who are actually turning 65 at that phenomenal rate. And there really are now more Americans over 65 and older than at any other time in our history of our country. And that's for a variety of reasons. One is that the lifespan is longer. It is now averages 78, and so that is an average lifespan. And many of you, I'm sure, know people who are much older than that. And there's, Willard Scott used to do his over 100 people showcasing them, and now there's so many people over 100. That's actually percentage-wise the fastest growing segment, but there's so many people over 100 and turning 100 that they have a lottery now to even showcase that, and you're seeing more and more examples of people who are much older, passing that 100 mark, and they keep on going, and they're still somewhat active. The Census Bureau does report that on April the 1st, 2010, which is the last report that we have, that those people age 65 and older are up 5.3%. So you've got 35 million in 2000. Look at this, though, only 3.1 million in 1900. So you can really see the difference that these demographics are making. And by 2030, which is really when, for the frail elderly in particular, there's going to be a huge influx, because most people who have age-related chronic diseases or conditions that require them to need assistance are going to be in that over 80 group. So by 2030, you're going to have 19% of the people over 65, but then you're having a huge number of the baby boomers, because they're going to be reaching 80 at that time. So you're going to have a huge influx in people who are going to need care for the frail elderly. In 2009, there were only 39.6 people over 65. So if you look at 2030, that number is expected to increase to 72.1 million. Pretty staggering numbers if you are selling products or services into this population. But what does it mean? It's a huge opportunity, an absolutely huge opportunity. But the product has to be right, the delivery has to exceed expectations, and the marketing has to be targeted correctly. So you have lots of things going on, and lots of opportunities. So the one thing that I continue to hear repeatedly is assuming that if someone is over 65, all of a sudden they're in that senior category and they're going to need services. Well, it really isn't the age that makes the difference. The difference is really frailty. So someone who's overweight and immobile and 65 years old, or I could say overweight, immobile, and 45 years old, pick an age, that overweight, immobile person is going to have more in common with a 95-year-old frail person than someone their age who is active and in good health. And the converse is true. If you have a very active person, regardless of age, they're going to have more in common with people, regardless of age, than somebody who is inactive and overweight. So when you're thinking about aging folks who might need services or products, you have to shift your thought process to realize that that it's really the frailty component of it that makes that common need or the common situation. Age is really not a determining factor, and that is an issue that is crucial when you talk about targeting. Marissa, do you want to?
The available services, I'm going to go ahead and talk about these. There's a lot of services currently available to those frail people or the frail elderly, but those services, I predict, will only continue to expand as technology develops and as needs change. But this is a list of some of the services that are currently available, certainly in-home care or in-home health care, alternative living facilities, so that people who want to move to a smaller home, for example, have those alternative living facilities to choose from. Telemedicine and telehealth, that's getting a lot of attention recently because of the Medicare rehospitalization rules that are currently in place and how that can help with that. Home retrofitting, certainly, for people who want to stay in their homes but need some changes to the home for safety reasons or for more accessibility. Medical devices and assistive devices. Mobile physicians, and not just mobile physicians, but a lot of services are currently available to travel to these frail people's homes. Even hair and beauty, massage, physical therapists, occupational therapists, they will come into the homes of these frail people in order to provide services. Activity extenders with virtual attendance. And what I mean when I say this are online services, things like Skype or Google Talk, that allow a homebound person who still needs interaction to have that interaction in their homes with other family members, and even things such as online classes that they can take part in from the safety of their homes or the comfort of their homes. There are also services so people can join groups of other people with like interests online. Just increasingly more activities that people can do in their homes. I know, for example, currently they have, people can attend operas at their local movie theaters where they do the recording live. And at some point, who knows, maybe that will be available for people on their computers. So that is definitely something that will develop as technology advances. Transportation to essentials and activities, transportation to a doctor's appointment, or just to enrichment activities so that they can get out of the home if they so desire. Travel companions. Sometimes family members want to take that frail person with them on vacations, and they need someone with them to provide the care for that person so it's an enjoyable vacation for everybody. Adult daycare services are growing in popularity, so perhaps the family caregiver needs a break or is away to work at certain times of the week, and they can have that frail person attend the adult daycare for enrichment activities, and geriatric care management. Who makes the decisions for the care? A lot of times people at first think that the people making decisions for the care are the seniors themselves, but oftentimes, and in fact usually, that is not the case. Normally it is the oldest daughter who makes those care decisions, or the daughter who provides that caregiving role for the frail person. So this would typically be somebody who's in their late 40s or possibly mid-50s, and they would be making the care decisions for that frail person. Trusted advisors. Seniors often turn to their trusted advisors for decisions on aging care services or aging services in general. And these advisors can range all the way from attorneys and trust officers to nurse case managers and social workers, even CPAs. These seniors will turn to for advice on aging care services. And a lot of times seniors will turn to neighbors or friends who have experienced similar situations for their recommendations on what they've experienced.
this all brings us to looking at the adult child, who, when we said daughters, because it is almost always a daughter or a granddaughter, but certainly there are many sons out there providing care. But again, this is we're showing trends. But this adult child caregiving, again, when we're talking about here, who is your target, you have to know if they're local or long distance. And as you can see from this slide, there's a lot of people living at a long distance from their frail elderly parents or their frail elderly loved ones. National Institute on Aging estimates that there are 7 million Americans that are long-distance caregivers, but Caring.com, which is really focused on caregiving resources, they estimate over 34 million people are actually providing care to someone frail and elderly, some of those at long distance and some of those in the same location as their elderly loved one.
Now, how do these people find out about services that are available for the frail or the frail elderly? Oftentimes, it's research, which is mainly done on the internet. You can see that statistic from the Pew Research study right there that shows 80% of internet users, or 59% of U.S. adults, look online for health information. And that statistic we have seen has only grown over the years. It's not going down. It's getting bigger and bigger. So what does that mean for your business? Well, first and foremost, you need to have an excellent website. And it needs to be informative. It should be easy to navigate and easy on the eyes with great contact information that's very easy to find. So there's a simple way for somebody to contact and reach your business. And be responsive when someone does contact your company through the website. Make sure that you get back to them right away. Use media relations. People are statistically more responsive to a third-party endorsement than an ad. And those papers that run your story are going to be out there, especially online, for a long time. So it really gives your information legs. And it will be noticed for a lot of times years after that story has run in the newspaper. Social media. It used to be something that people, sort of took notice of with businesses, but mainly it was for people who wanted to have fun. Well, increasingly, especially through SEO or search engine rankings, that social media is becoming more important. You can use it to showcase your success or showcase how a solution works for a particular situation. And in the meantime, your findability on search engines will increase by using those social media outlets. And educate. Offer CEUs to professionals, to those trusted advisors. Find out the questions that people who are seeking aging services might ask and answer those questions in educational seminars for, it could be for the caregivers of the frail people, and as I mentioned before, it could be for those trusted advisors. But offering those CEUs will give an incentive for those social workers and nurse case managers to attend those webinars and be introduced to your services and your company.
I think one of the important things in the way marketing has changed is that people are more prone to the research and the education and actually finding information themselves than they are to paid ads. And we find that people, business owners, people who are in charge of marketing in businesses, like to do paid ads because it's a very easy way to do marketing. You're paying your money. You design the ad, it's gone. You pay for it, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But what's happening is more and more people are actually ignoring ads. And if you look at these percentages, some of these sort of surprise me, but if you think about, this is really just a Harris poll about consumers. So we don't know if this is products or services, but some of the vehicles here, the channels, clearly relate more to products than services. But it is, what we're seeing is increasing, the increasing ignorance is not the word, that consumers are ignoring ads at an increasing number. They're tuning off ads, paid ads, in a variety of ways. And so it really is harder if you're paying for an ad to get someone to actually pay attention to you than if you take the route of educating and helping them find solutions to their problems versus just putting an ad out there and taking the sales route.
Using helpful resources as bait, and this is key. And, the reason why it's key is because a lot of these aging services are only paid attention to by these people when they need the services. And so in order to keep your company name out there so that they recognize it and feel that it's a trusted resource when that time needs for them to use your service, then these educational materials are going to accomplish that. And education comes in many forms, but before I touch on that, I know that it's a bit of a mind shift for a lot of people to go from, how are you going to sell your company through education? Well, it's a softer sell. Instead of going out there and continually handing out your brochures, instead you're going to be out there handing information out that answers the questions that these people or their caregivers are seeking. It could answer the questions that the trusted referral sources need answered in order to help their clients, who will then be referred to you. You could have educational materials in all sorts of materials, such as things that go on your website, things that you can hand out, such as postcards or flyers that answer those questions. You could give PowerPoint presentations, as we mentioned before, with the CEUs or educational webinars. We have created the MOST program, which uses this education component as sort of the key to all of the materials. It is a turnkey marketing program specifically for home care agencies and home health care, Medicare and hospice agencies. And it provides those resource sheets answering questions such as, what are the differences between home care and home health care? And what does Medicare pay for? What doesn't it pay for? How do you plan for long-term care? There's so many questions out there that people are looking for answers to. And if your company is out there providing the answers, it's going to make you that much more trusted and give them that comfortability factor so that they choose you versus another company. Merrily, I don't know if I missed anything about the MOST program that you wanted to touch on before we go to the active elderly.
No, I think you did a great job, and something may come up in our questions. We are getting questions, which again we will answer when we reach the end of the webinar. I did want to talk about the active elderly, because with this number of people that are turning 65 every day, you have a huge opportunity. And in the past, 65 did seem old. The closer you get to 65, it doesn't seem so old anymore, as long as you are still active. So in this age group, you better not call them elderly or seniors unless you're giving them a discount. And then if you're giving them a discount for something, they certainly don't mind being called elderly or senior to get a discount for that. But if you look at the active elderly group as a whole, and again, frailty is more of a determination than age, so what we're really looking at is active people, but people who are retiring or working less or in a situation where maybe they're downsizing their homes. I mean, their lifestyles do change as one ages. So there are huge opportunities. They're not exactly aging care services, but they are services that would be geared to active people who are over 65. I mean, travel is probably one of them that is the most prevalent, because there are so many things that someone who perhaps has saved their money and and waited for this time that they could travel is going to be able to do that they didn't do in their working years. Also different kinds of training. The people who have retired from one job find themselves in retirement being a little bored and like to learn new things, and whether it's to get more money, have a second income, or whether it's to simply keep the mind alert, training is something that is definitely in a growth mode in a variety of ways. And then group activities. Again, the active elderly are active, so they're biking, they're hiking, they're snorkeling, they're scuba diving, they're they're traveling, they like to do things for the most part in groups, because the other thing that does happen as someone ages is those people who are losing spouses or have spouses who are inactive still want to be active themselves, and they're more likely to do something in a group than to go alone. Lifestyle options. I mean, again, whether you're downsizing the house, or whether you want to live at a golfing community, or travel, or all of those things, learn to cook, try new things. There's different lifestyle options that people feel that they have more freedom to choose as they get older. There's also lots of services that simplify technology, and someone over 65 may or may not have interfaced a lot with technology, and so simple computer interfaces, simple cell phones, smartphones, technology that really is very intuitive and easy to use is something that really helps target the group. I mean, it's amazing to me because I'm watching a close friend of mine who is 78 using a smart iPad, and then I'm also seeing a 3-year-old using the same iPad, and it's a very interesting mix to realize that if the interface is completely simple, then people will use it. And there's a lot of opportunity there because you've got more and more people statistically using smartphone devices and mobile devices. Services to learn new things, services to meet new people with like interests. So, and then lots of opportunities there. And then housing also that is that's very easily and affordable. So the opportunities for services and products to target this group are pretty much endless. But who makes the decisions for these active elderly people is so different from who makes the decisions for aging care services, because it's generally the active person, him or herself, perhaps their spouse or partner, or a group to which the person belongs. So it's a completely different target, completely different message, and completely different visual.
Now, the way that these active seniors find out about the services is going to look a little deja vu-ish to you, because it's very similar to how the folks find out about services for the frail or the frail elderly people. But it bears repeating because it is important. And again, it's research, mainly on the internet, so have that easy to navigate, fabulous website with an easy, simple way for people to contact you and find your contact information. Offer the webinars or educational snippets videos on your website showcasing the product or service. Put those videos up on YouTube. Use the media relations for the third-party endorsement. And, of course, using social media. These active seniors, as you'll see in some statistics to come, are very active on social media.
When we are defining in some of these statistics that I'm going to show you is older as over 65. And some of the questions we had coming into this webinar is how do you market to those to baby boomers, and how do you market to people over 65? And we've talked about the education component. We've talked about the importance of a website. Some of the other questions had to do with how do you reach this market? Well, you reach this market by providing information and education and opportunities for them to learn more, get their questions answered, for you to be a helpful resource. So, and what's happening is that internet usage and mobile device usage in this group is really growing, and the gains at this point are now significant. 53% of American adults age 65 and older use the internet or email. And so this is really the first time that half of the seniors, and again, senior defined as somebody 65 or older, that half of those seniors are going online, and the trend is continuing upward. And this is some surprising, this is a surprising statistic here, that 34% of the users 65 and older are using social networking, and 18% of those do so on a typical day. And there are so many different social networking sites, and they are growing every day, and the usage is continuing to grow. And I also predict that you will see more people using social networking. It's such an easy way to keep in touch, and it is such an easy way to engage. Email, though, however, still remains the bedrock of online communications for seniors. I think you don't see too many seniors texting. I'm not sure that the senior thumb is as flexible as the younger person's thumb, or it's such a different concept. But online communications is really prevalent here. If you look at this, 86% of internet users 65 and older are using email, and 48%, that's almost half of people who are online, are communicating by email on a daily basis. And mobile device usage, this is also going up and up. And you've got 69% of adults age 65 and older who now have a mobile phone, and that's up from 57% just in May of 2010. So, and among those aged 76 and older, 56% have a cell phone of some kind, and that's up tremendously too from 2010. So you really do have mobile devices and internet usage and email and social media as components that people are integrating into their daily lives, and significant numbers of older people. So this is sort of key marketing strategy to reach seniors. And again, that's whether they are seniors who are active or seniors who are frail. But that first thing is knowing the target. Who is it that's going to make that decision? And that's the person that you want all of your marketing communication geared to, because that's the crucial first point. And a lot of people miss that. They will target the older person themselves when actually that's not the person making the decision. Or they'll target the younger person when it is the person making the decision. So you really have to be clear about understanding who is that target for your audience. And then I emphasized that message earlier, and I cannot emphasize enough that message has got to resonate with and be enticing to and speak to the unmet need that the person has that you're going to fill by your product or service. And then what is going to move that target to act? What visual can you accompany that's going to move that target to act? I mean, we've done some research just in our social media usage for our company and for our clients' companies, and we really find that that the visual is important. And we've known it's important. We're a marketing company, but the fact that it is so much more important now on the internet with social media, and even something like Pinterest, which is total visual, it's really catching on, and it is something that does move people and makes people act. So a crucial component now to marketing. And then the best way to reach the decision makers. I think hopefully what you've seen today is that more and more marketing decisions are being made online. So having a good website, having good social media presence, learning how to take the basic marketing strategy and implement it on the internet is going to be a way that you will be able to reach this target market. So let me now mention, before we get into questions, let me mention the next webinars in this series. And we do have, this is a 6-part series, so these are the next 5. We will send out invitations for this, and we will have the registration up on our corecubed website so people can sign up. But we're going to cover some more components of reaching the aging care service market in more depth in this next 6-part series. And again, we are recording this, so it will be on our corecubed website. But we would love to have you attend with us. So now I'm going to get into some of the questions that you all have asked. First, I'll go to the questions you've asked online, and then I will move into the ones that you submitted ahead of time. So the first one is, are the non-elderly services going to target the elderly? I'm assuming that this person is talking about the slide where we said someone who had frailty but was not elderly yet would probably need the same services as an elderly person. And yes, now the difference here is that there are a lot of aging care services that are provided and paid for by the government, and those services are generally age restricted. So if you're looking for services that are paid for and age restricted by a third party, then you're not going to have access to those services if you don't meet those criteria. I love this. Will a copy of the PowerPoint be emailed to you? I'm taking notes like crazy. Thank you for doing that. We're not emailing the PowerPoint out. However, you can access this webinar. Again, it takes us about an hour to get it up on our website, but you can access it on the website, and you can watch it as many times and listen to it as many times as you want to. This next question, please briefly explain a social media strategy and how that would be implemented. Social media strategy is really a complement to all of your other marketing strategy, and it falls along the lines of what we've talked about. That's the way to target this market, which is education and information and helpful tips. So you take that component, knowing you're going to be answering questions, but for social media, there's an additional level that has to do with visual and that has to do with engagement. So think about if you were networking, so social networking in a physical sense. If you go to an event and you are meeting people, and what you're doing is looking for things in common when you meet those people. So you're going to ask them questions. What are they interested in? What do they do? Do they have grandchildren? Do they work? Do they vacation? Do they travel? So those types of things are things that you incorporate into your social media strategy. What you're looking for is ways to engage your audience better. So not just giving them some link to an elderly care article, but saying, here is a link to an elderly care article. We find that the first tip is an excellent tip. Has anyone else tried taking, Alzheimer's training for their caregivers? So you're asking a question, giving them a resource, trying to get them engaged. The next would be finding visuals that really do match with what you're trying to talk about. We've also found humor is a great thing for social media. People really do like humor. The other thing they respond to very well is beautiful, beautiful photographs. So if you have a photograph of something that has happened that is a positive, for instance, a client appreciation day at a local restaurant, posting a picture showing you and your client, again with client's permission, but posting a picture of an event so someone can visualize what it is that you did, and then using it and asking about it, making comments about it. Marissa, do you want to add anything else in terms of a strategy for social media?
No, I think those are excellent points, and I just agree that sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to find what your particular audience responds to, but paying attention to those trends as to what it is that they really like, and then doing more of that.
And for the business pages on Facebook particularly, they have a great tool that allows you to see what the viral component of your posts and how many people are sharing them and posting them. So if you do this for a little while, you have a good gauge of what is of interest to people. You can also, there's statistics about when people are looking. We have found that the more often you post, and you shouldn't overpost, but at least once a day, you will have a much better return on engagement than you will if you post less often than that. So, but the strategy is like any other marketing strategy. Again, just making certain that you are doing something and that you are measuring it and that you're doing more of what works. So good point. Someone's asked, what's the better word to replace seniors or elders? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a better word to replace seniors or elders if you are of the mindset that what you're doing is trying to target someone of a certain age. Hopefully, what I have imparted to you today is that it's really the frailty component, not the age, that makes a difference to the type of service that someone is going to want or to be interested in. And the other thing that complicates this a little bit is someone who is an active person who happens to be 80 years old and has a fall or an accident or the flu, that person might become frail for a time period and then fall into that category of needing the aging care services for the frail, but that person might also then move back into the active category because once that episode is over, that person is not going to stay in that care mode for long. That person's going to get back into the active world and get back into being an active person, not a frail person. So if you feel that you need to use a word to determine age, seniors is probably the most preferable to people, although I've seen studies on it, and some people say they prefer elder because that does have a connotation of wisdom with it. So, but I would really think about trying to not use the word senior or elderly unless you have the word frail attached to it. This is a comment. Your info on the low rate of radio advertising was surprising to me. We're seeing more and more home care agencies doing this type of advertising. Is it ever effective? The info that we showed was from a Harris poll, so that was obviously whoever was polled. And I also think that, as I said when I showed that slide, we didn't have an idea of if it was products or services.
Well,
radio advert
there were showing who ignored those ads, so a low number was a good thing.
Yes, a low number was a good thing on the radio ads. So people are less apt to ignore radio ads than they are other ads. But the question here is more and more home care agencies are doing type of advertising. Is it effective? I think radio is effective, again, because it's effective if you realize who your target is. We have had, just anecdotally, people who find radio effective using the public radio stations and Christian radio, and so the targets for those are specifically private duty services. The targets for people that are making decisions are listening to the radio. So you're right, Marissa, though the point of the radio wasn't very low. I should go back and look at that so you can see the slide. The one thing about radio ads that I really think is important is to make certain that the radio ad is also educating and not just selling. I think the best way to do a radio ad is to have the person come and interview you, the agency owner, or whoever you want to be the voice on the radio ad, but in a conversational format. So you're actually answering a question in your native, natural speaking cadence. You're not having to be trained in reading from a script, because I think reading from a script is one of the worst things you can do. But if you are naturally showing your enthusiasm or your passion for the services you're providing, then I think radio ads work well, because that passion comes through and people are going to hear that. I don't think radio ads alone help. If you're going to use radio ads, I would make certain you've also got them on your website and that you have them in other places. So and I've also seen in some of the bigger metropolitan markets, people do billboards with drive time radio. And the other thing that I've seen work really well is hosting sponsored time on the radio where you're actually answering questions and having people call in and asking questions about care.
I think it's important to note also that a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on advertising, and they think that that's all they need to do for their marketing. But you really need to hit a lot more channels than just advertising. And we gave a lot of examples of doing that through webinars, material on your website, social media, etc.
Very, very good point. Many of the, whoops, I just lost this. Many of the large metropolitan markets, sorry, I'm losing my question here. Many of the large metro markets are experiencing an oversaturation of non-medical agencies. There are simply no barriers to enter this industry, so everyone thinks he and she can be successful. This causes confusion among both referral sources and consumers on who's the best value. And what are you seeing with your clients who are in these markets on how they differentiate themselves from the pack, and what are the most common top 3 areas of differentiation? Marissa spoke about this, and I will tell you, we have clients in 36 states, and some of our clients have had their very best year last year. I just spoke with a client yesterday who ended up the year with a 12% growth in revenue last year, the best growth they've had. And what he is doing is what we are recommending. He is educating. He has marketing people who do go out, but their focus is really on educating, providing CEUs for the professionals, and providing material that is helpful and of value added to the person, to the referral source. You're also going to do far better to be targeting the referral source themselves, particularly for the frail elderly services and the home care, non-medical home care, because if you have a good referral source, then you're going to get more referrals than just trying to target the adult child specifically. And again, it's hard to target the adult child because they may physically not be in the same location. Again, why we recommend websites and why we recommend the helpful resources and education as a way to reach this market and to sell those frail elderly services. Differentiators in home care is really difficult. I would say that becoming an expert in your industry through education is really the very best way to differentiate yourself. And that differentiation will follow through from not only what you're doing to educate referral sources in the community and what you have on your website, but also how you answer the telephone and how you respond to inquiry. So I include that, positioning yourself as an expert in the differentiation. The second differentiation, I think, is in quality. And someone who is wanting to buy care, purchase services for a loved one is going to be very interested in quality. And that quality, are you a quality service or not, comes through in a million different ways and not just what you say. And again, it's how you answer the phone. What does your material look like? What does your website look like? If you are leaving information in the home, what does that look like? So how do your caregivers dress themselves? I mean, I think quality, are they trained? The quality extender is something that's really a brand extension. So positioning yourself as an expert and then providing quality. And I think the third area of differentiation is literally being helpful so that you are known as someone who provides assistance. So when someone calls your agency, even if that person's need is not something you provide, that you locate a resource for that person and you connect that person with the resource so that you're not saying, no, we don't do that, but you are completing the loop, because every positive that you have out there in the community for where you've helped someone, whether you're providing the service or not, that is really, to me, the top 3 areas of differentiation. Marissa, would you agree, or do you have something you'd like to add to that?
Absolutely. I would agree.
Okay, let's see. Oh, good. We got some thank yous. I'm looking forward to the series. Let me just go through some of the questions that we had online. That when people had registered that you had asked us to cover, because we've covered some of them. We did cover messaging for different segments, so I think we covered that. I think we have informed you about this emerging market, at least statistically, and some of the those services and products that, if they're not already available, will continue to grow and be available later. I think this better marketing to decision makers, hopefully you are at least in a mindset now to start thinking about who is the decision maker for whatever you're trying to sell, because again, as you know, based on what you're trying to sell and to whom you're trying to sell it, there will be different decision makers. This is a hard one. How can you determine the number of referrals from an agency or a community? This is hard because it depends on what you're selling. If you have a service that's being covered by insurance or government, that's the third-party payments, then you can determine that number better because you can actually extrapolate, and there's data out there that tells you how many people are entering hospitals, how many people are coming out of hospitals, how many people are actually using services when they are coming out of the hospital. So you can get that information, you can determine that, and that'll tell you specifically how many people are using those services. What you can't determine is the number of referrals for services for which one pays a fee. And there are, as the population ages, there are more and more services for which one pays a fee that are provided to the frail elderly. Private duty home care, non-medical home care probably being one of the biggest ones. And the problem with determining numbers is that you not only have to have someone frail who needs the service, but you have to have someone who can afford to pay for that service. So it's really difficult to know the number that you are going to get. What you do in those situations is look for your current client base and find out the people who are currently have referred those people to you and start working those people, because if you can massage one referral source into giving you more referrals, then that's a much better marketing time spent or sales time spent than trying to find a new one. But then, because you do know who those people are, then you look for people like them and you head out and target them. And Marissa, if you want to jump in on any of those, you are perfectly welcome to. One of the questions I got asked here in the pre-registration was free marketing. Well, I would say that anything in life is basically worth what you pay for it. So if you're looking for free marketing, there are costs associated almost with every kind of marketing. So the second follow-up to this same person is getting the word out in bulk about your business. Well, one of the components of care for aging services or aging services provision is that in most situations it's not a one-size-fits-all. So it's not like you wear a shoe size and you're going to go to the market, and if they don't have a size 8, you're not going to find a shoe. You have a problem and you don't know where to go for a solution. Again, I'm talking about frail elderly services. So there is such an unknown component to frail elderly services that people, when they first have a need, generally don't have any clue about where to go or who to turn to. That's why they generally turn to trusted advisors, friends, or neighbors, because they really don't know. So it's very difficult, unless you're approaching the provision of services and your marketing as an educational component, it's going to be very difficult for people to find you and to know if you are the right solution, because they don't even know what the right solution is. It would be like they've never worn shoes before, so they don't even know what a shoe is. So if they go into the shoe store, they don't know they wear a size 8. So it's very difficult to come up with free marketing that you can do bulk. You can certainly do newsletters, because it's very inexpensive. To some of the third-party newsletter services are very inexpensive. You could certainly
articles.
Yes.
Articles on other people's newsletters, or press. If you get a paper, something in your local paper that's quote-unquote free advertising, so to speak, from a third-party endorsement.
And social media is free if you don't count your time as being worth anything. So so there are things you can do for free, but there are things that you can do for free, but again, actually, if you start with a strategy and you don't have any money, your free is going to go a lot farther than if you're just shooting in the dark. I've got a question here about differentiating. I believe I've covered that. Business growth strategies and tactics. Each business has different growth strategies and tactics, and I don't know. This person is, let's see if I can tell what. It's a home care person. So the very best tool that I find to look for business growth strategies and tactics and how they've worked in this home care industry is Home Care Pulse. They have a survey that they do every year, and it is very, very good in terms of giving you comparative statistics about other agencies to look at to see what they've used for growth strategies and also the tactics that they've used and the ancillary services that they've offered. So that's what I would suggest. I've got a person here who wants to know about a marketing plan and where to find more clients. I wish it were as easy to say that there was a silver bullet. A marketing plan is something that there's lots of opportunities to find a marketing plan out there, and it's going to really depend on your geography and the services you offer. But I would recommend finding someone to help you with a plan if you've never done that, because finding more clients is like a needle in a haystack when you start. There's a lot of things to do to try to find clients. And then the thing is, once you find that client, guess what? You have to service them, and you have to provide an excellent service because you want that person to come back. Crafting a message for financial advisors. That's pretty specific. So the financial professional referral sources, what we have found, this is going to sound like a broken record, is that you can actually, there is an organization for financial providers, and you can actually provide education to them. They have ongoing meetings. It's a national organization, but they have local meetings, and people who are financial advisors attend those meetings, and they are hungry for information. So again, when we talk about education, we are not talking about going out and educating people about what your service is. We are talking about educating people in things about aging services that they might not know, where to go for help, answering questions that people have when they start looking for services. So that's what we're talking about. But that is really from a, sorry, Marissa.
Reaching the financial advisors through education is one of the only ways oftentimes that you can do it is through that education, because oftentimes they have their hands tied as far as who they can recommend. But if they are handing out your materials that are educating, it's something that's a lot more allowable for these financial advisors to do.
I think I've covered the rest of these questions. So I have one question here. This is an interesting. What has changed that now compels people to delay having home care services? I am not aware that people are delaying having home care services, and I've not heard that from anyone. Have you seen that statistic anywhere, Marissa?
I have not. I mean, just like any other age, well, I think the baby boomers in particular, nobody wants to admit, hey, I'm frail, or hey, I have a need. It's really hard to admit that you're losing some capabilities and you're afraid of losing your independence. So it's a matter of showing them that your services are going to enhance their independence rather than take away their independence. That, I think, is a key message to impart.
And we have some more people who are typing in, and thank you for doing that. I love it that you're actually using our question and answer opportunity here. And this is a very good thought, and sorry I missed it. Free marketing through relationship building. What can you do to help the local Alzheimer's Association or hospice achieve their goals? And we didn't mention the networking or working with associations or becoming a member of an association, but that is certainly an excellent way to do free marketing, again, assuming you don't consider your time as having a cost associated with it. And the other thing that I could say is that it really, networking in general, and again, back to Home Care Pulse and their industry study, networking, and I haven't even mentioned this today, shame on me, networking is really, for the home care industry, pretty much the primary marketing tool and the primary effective marketing tool, because if you think about it, people refer to people that they like and that they trust. So how do they know if they like you and trust you unless they've met you and interfaced with you? So the better you are at networking, the more trust and relationship building you're going to have. So that really is sort of a hallmark that I hadn't mentioned. So thank you, whoever did that. Here's another one. Do you think price is a factor as much as people think it is in decision making of who is chosen to give care once the decision is made? This is a personal opinion. I don't have any statistics on this, but I think price is a factor in the beginning when people are searching for care because they don't know about what care is or what's entailed. And it's also a factor, obviously, if someone has a limited money, price is going to be a huge factor. But in terms of long-term in-home care, price is not so much a factor if once someone has had in-home care and understands the difference in safety and the difference in security of having an aide there that has been trained, is monitored, is supervised, and having some support for the family. But I do think it's a factor in the beginning. I think you can overcome that by what we've talked about today. You can overcome that by focusing on quality, focusing on becoming an expert in the services that you provide. So I mean, there are and educating so that people feel comfortable with you and grow in those relationships. So I do think you can overcome that, but it is definitely the first question anyone asks when they make a phone call for any kind of services. So that is really the end of our questions, and we are 2 minutes away from the end of our seminar. So Marissa, do you have something you'd like to end with to state?
I just wanted to hit one last time on education being the key, because it does create that trust factor that's going to, in the end, I think, overcome the price factor. When they feel comfortable that you are a great resource and that you know what you're talking about through that educational material, it's going to make the difference.
Well, I'd like to once again thank you all for attending. Remind you that we will have this webinar posted on our corecubed.com website, and we do look forward, hopefully, to having you join us again on our next webinar, which I believe is February the 6th. And so I will let you go to our CoreCubed website and sign up for that one. It is February the 6th at noon, and it's on marketing aging care services. And on that webinar, we're going to talk about what are some tactics that you can use to reach this aging market for the least amount of money and the biggest return on investment. So we hope you will join us then. And until then, I will say what I always say when I end our staff meetings: onward and upward. Enjoy your day. Thank you.